City Council on Tuesday, September the 18th at 7 p.m. Please rise for the invocation given by Councilwoman Ms. Lucido and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, we ask for your guidance as we go about the business of the people of Eastpointe. We are grateful for the many blessings you have given us. Let us all use the gifts of our talents and treasures to make our community a better place. It is in your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Here.
Councilmember Lucido?
Here.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Here.
Councilmember Owens?
Here.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes, here. Would like to change the agenda just slightly and move item D, the bid award, up to in front of item A. That's for the assessing, and both of the people are here tonight, and it would just be easier if they can do their presentation and then leave. And then also, under closed session tonight, the attorney has stated that he doesn't need to be part of the attorney-client privilege communication with the pending litigation, so we can cross that out. But I believe that we have something else to add. Is that correct?
Correct. Confidential employment applications.
All right, so get rid of A and add that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So then I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with those corrections, please.
So moved. Support.
Move to support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. We move into the first hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard? Mr. Creech, is that you without your hat? Got it. People won't know who you
Yeah,
are.
didn't recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Harvey Creech, resident of East Detroit for 50-plus years. I come here with some praise tonight, not all bad news. I would like to thank Mr. Cotton. I would like to thank Mr. Albright. I would like to thank Michael Kleinfeld. I would like to thank Joe Marucci. I can see things in this city are starting to look up. People are really starting to come to the table, and I can see where things are going. They're going forward instead of backwards. I'm hoping that this regeneration, or whatever we're going to call it, can go forward. I hope the new Parks Commission will go to the Recreation Commission so we can put them all together. I hope the new Arts and Culture can do real well. I'm gonna go, I tell you, we've got the ball, we've got a court, and we got a lot of things, and I said, I think we're really getting there. And I got a chance to talk to quite a few people. There's a lot of things, I still have a lot of griddle in the fire and a lot of grease boiling, but one thing about it, I'll let it hold as long as I can, because I can really see things are starting to go in the right direction. And I would like to say, I would really like to thank Mr. Cotton. I wish he had a chance to stick around, maybe even become our new city manager, because the man, let's put it this way, I'm not going to say the man can read, but he understands a lot of things that I'm glad he does, because we talk, a few things, and one word he mentions, I love to hear it, because that's what I was responsible for the last 8 years, TOW, gray matter. The more of that gray matter we can straighten out between the city, the residents, and everything else going, I think a lot happier people are going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creech. Anyone else wish to be heard? Please come forward and state your name.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Liggins.
I'm sorry, can you state your name again?
Melissa Liggins.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm an Eastpointe resident on Mott Avenue. I just wanted to bring to your attention the fence ordinance Section 50-161. I would like the council to actually review and edit the fence ordinance, and I'll explain why. I received a fence violation notice from the city of Eastpointe on the 15th of September. What I did was I added some bamboo to the existing fence because there were some instances that had occurred in 2016. I actually wrote the mayor and the council members about the incident that occurred with my neighbors. And I'll just read here what I wrote here. I'm sorry. So in regards to the incident that had taken place with my neighbors, we were called the N-word. And this was an unprovoked incident. In advance, we had informed our neighbors on both sides that we would be having a birthday celebration for my mom, a small gathering. So out of courtesy, we did let the neighbors know that we'd have some people over. The police were called on us. Each time we go outside to work in the yard or just sit out and enjoy the property, my neighbors, they will come outside to observe what's going on my property, as if we're criminals or something. So I do understand that the fence ordinance says that we have to get permission from our neighbors in order to erect a new fence. But my question would be, how do I do that if the neighbor is unwilling to allow me to erect a privacy fence? So I just wanted to ask the council if they will review that ordinance and try to come up with a solution that will work. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Karen?
Karen Morajan, Eastpointe resident. Once again, I'm here to speak to the issue of the conflict going on with the humane pet ordinance. On one hand, you know, the ordinance bans the sale of puppies, kitties, bunnies, and ferrets, which I wholeheartedly support that. But at the same time, the conflict is that petting farms are being allowed at events in Eastpointe, and these animals are not being properly cared for. You know, at the Kennedy Park event, the weather was so outrageously hot in the high 80s and high humidity. That poor rabbit, I showed you pictures from the last council meeting I was at. There was a scant amount of water that, you know, violates the anti-cruelty statute in adequate care, adequate provisions, because the animals must be provided with adequate water, they must be provided with shade, they must be provided with adequate food, they must be provided with sanitary conditions. And there was no shade provided. I've been to the rare meeting where, you know, Tony Lipinski is on the record saying, I don't know why there was no shade provided for that rabbit. In years past, they have. And here's the thing, these petting farms go to city, you know, touting this is a wonderful thing for the, you know, local municipalities to have. The kids will love it, you know, they'll be entertained. I'm sorry, that is not the lesson we want to teach children. We need to teach children compassion towards animals. There's no compassion when you cage a rabbit and you fail
30
to
seconds.
provide that rabbit with water, food, and shade. Warren, they had something similar. Let me tell you, Warren is on the ball. They're wanting a model ordinance to ban petting farms before 2019. So my question to the council is, when are you going to amend this ordinance?
Your
This is
time
an
is up.
opportunity to lead the way, or you're going to fall behind Warren, because Warren and Roseville are
Karen.
extremely supportive of banning this. Thank you. I know I went over. Thank
You
you.
can come back.
I will.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else? Seeing none, the first hearing of the public is closed, and we'll move on to approval of the minutes from a regular meeting of September the 4th. Do we have a motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 4th, 2018.
Support. Move and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lucido,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
We have no scheduled hearings tonight. We only have one piece of unfinished business, and that's the approval of the purchase of the new City of Eastpointe domain address. Who's going to take this up?
The Director of our Information Technology, Randy Altimus, has worked most on this, so we'd like to start with Randy. Thank you.
Mr. Altimus.
Hopefully, everybody got my email on our kind of semi-mix-up on actually ordering the wrong domain name, but since we're not liable for paying for it, and it's just sitting there, if we decide we want to go ahead with that also, we'll also apply. The last time we left this topic, I had made a promise to, give you the intern, the city manager's intern write-up on the whole subject, and we were going to talk about whether we wanted to proceed with that to get the new domain name, and then over the next several years, start making the conversion to it. Obviously, when I put it on the agenda, I thought I was asking permission to buy one. I still am. If you decide to go forward, I'd just like that permission now, and then I can get the paperwork done on the one that we should have actually applied for and get that one. So we kind of left it at that you wanted to see that information, and then hopefully at this point, we can make a determination if you want to move forward with it.
What is the advantage over what we currently have?
Well, I think there was some thought to the process that it would be in a marketing type addition to what we have currently, with a lot of municipalities going with .gov versus .net or .org, which we have on, because we have .net on our domain and then .org for our email. So I think that was kind of part of it, is to bring it into the fold, to market us a little better as a .gov website, and to get the city's kind of brand out there. Did I say that right? I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
How, if we do this, do we have to change? We don't have to change, but eventually we would have to change the address on all the business cards, and our current letterhead doesn't have it on, I don't believe.
No,
But, all the business
eventually.
cards do.
I mean, eventually you would, depending on who uses the email addresses and stuff, you might want to make that conversion at a later date. Again, we've talked about this is, over a couple years to get this conversion done. So, I mean, some of us don't put our email address on there. As purchasing agent, I do not put my email address on my business card, because people think it's a collector's item to go out, and then all of a sudden I get barraged with emails. So some people use it, some people don't. We just have to advertise in the normal places we normally do now on our websites, address and everything else.
Madam Mayor, we could change, once we get the domain, change our business cards and letterhead, but we can use our existing stuff until that runs out, and then just use that. We wouldn't waste any, because
Yeah,
both
because
would work.
our check today, what was it, Linda, for business cards are $75 each? No, For 500, and how many employees? All of our administrative people and council each have individual business cards?
Yeah, we wouldn't have to buy anything out of the ordinary next time we need to buy them. You just have .gov.
Our current cost is $8 a year, correct?
Yes, I mean, currently, whatever we're doing with the .net and .org, I believe
And this
that's,
one is 400 a year,
that is correct.
plus the IT time.
Whatever IT time we would put into it, yes.
So you know,
I just don't see a lot of advantage. And I know, Cardi, I know that you think that this is really a big thing, but I've gone through so many lists of government people recently, and I just don't see the big trend and change in it. And I don't know, I must be lopsided to see that it's a necessity. I just don't feel it is. But that's council's opinion. That's my opinion, so I'd like to hear
Yeah,
council's.
well, I'd like to know what you think. I know we got Weiwei's report. Are you interested in making this transition? And do you think it would be onus?
I mean, I don't think it's gonna be onus, because you're not gonna try to do this all at once. You're gonna do this conversion over time. So as long as we have that under our belt and we all sit here and nod our heads up and down, that's gonna happen, that's fine. I don't care one way or the other. I will do whatever, I mean, I just will do whatever you guys will think might be better for us, but I don't have an opinion one way or the other, good, bad, or indifferent. I just, I think it's fine.
So there's actually like no advantages of paying the $400 a year. I mean, besides we'd just be a .gov. That's the only thing.
Yes,
That's really gonna change.
well, that's what you're getting out of the 400
Right.
is the
the
right to
title.
have the, it's eastpointmi.gov, I think is what we want. So that's the right one, right?
yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
because obviously I've not done the right one, but that gives you the right to use that through the registrar.
So it does sound like it is just a 3-letter change, but if you get an email from a .gov, you know that it is from the government. Right now, especially with all the issues we have with election interference and all this, or someone could go out and buy, so we have cityofeastpointe.net right now. Someone could buy like cityofeastpointmi.net, and someone might not catch it, think they're talking to someone at the city. But if you get a .gov, any .gov email, you know it's some government official. So it's a trust and that sort of thing, not just a 3-letter change. At least that's how I'm viewing it. Detroit uses detroitmi.gov. We have michigan.gov. Government organizations should use it, I believe. I mean, personally, of course, I'm a little biased because I am professionally in the tech field, but I think it is just, that it is that person when it's .gov. And then if we were going to combine our email and our website together, we might as well just buy the .gov and then start to do that, as opposed to combining to the .org or combining the .net. We could just combine right to the .gov then. We could do one, and all of the domains can work the whole time too. There's not a cutoff or anything. We wouldn't have to throw out any business cards or anything.
Well, as long as we own them or are paying for them, we still have rights to the .net and the .org too.
Right, so we would have to overlap. We'd pay the extra, $8 or $15 or $20 a year for each of the other 2 domains. Till, for a long time probably.
I do pay attention. I don't know how many people do this. I do pay attention to my address bar when I'm searching things, to make sure I'm not stumbling on I don't know what it's called, but like a fake site that's supposed to look like. Yeah. Is that what it's called? Or just, okay. So I think it's a good idea to migrate towards that. The other question I had is, does the court have a .gov, or do you know what they have right now?
I think theirs is through, I don't offhand.
Because a lot of municipalities will have their address, then like /district, and give them their own website.
Because they did that, yeah, they did their whole thing separate from us. I don't know if they went through the state or how because that was all done separate.
If they're, I just asked because if they're paying $400 for government, and we can just say, hey, you could just have a page on our site and have total control over it, might be an opportunity to invite them
I
to do
don't think
something.
they're a .gov.
So there's a .us.
That's what theirs is? Yes. Oh, they probably pay, well, I don't know what you pay for that then.
I actually have no idea how that
But
domain
the
works.
court is separate.
Yeah.
In doing some research, just in the mayor's group, 80 different cities, only one mayor per city, and there were only 4 out of 80 that had a .gov.
We can lead the way.
I just say, I'm fine with it, just because I think it doesn't cost a lot of money, and eventually it might be good to have a .gov, just for credibility reasons.
What do you want to take, you want to make a motion?
Well, Cardi wants to make a motion.
Sure, I'll motion to approve the purchase of the new domain address from the provider at a cost of $400 per year for eastpointmi.gov, and authorize the deputy city clerk to execute all necessary documents related to this purchase.
I'll support.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
No.
Councilmember Lucido.
No.
Let's move on to reports from administration, and we'll start with our city manager, interim city manager, Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mayor Pixley, members of the City Council. I do want to respond to the suggestion that the fence ordinance be looked at, and I know that our Director of the Department is here, Mary Van Haren, and I and she will look at that and let you know if there's any conclusions that would be mutually beneficial. In relation to petting zoos, which was also mentioned, I will take your guidance, and we will, it's a policy matter, I believe, and we'll work however you'd like in the meantime. I have 6 other items before the 2-minute tips. One, very excited that George Rauhib is going to be our next public safety director, and that he is starting a week from yesterday. So on September 24th, his swearing in will be on October 1st. It'll be at 9 a.m. It'll be likely, we haven't decided on exact location. Our deputy city clerk does that work, I believe, assistant city manager, but we're going to talk about that.
You just tell me where to show up.
So anyway, stay tuned. We'll put something out there for if anyone would like to be in attendance. On October 16th, we'd like to have an official opportunity for the community to come in and meet before your council meeting that night at 6:30 in this room. So that will give everyone an opportunity to meet him who would like to. He's already at work, so to speak. He's met several times with our command personnel, our top command personnel, has spoken to me multiple times, and is already going to hit the ground running as far as I can tell. So his actual, well, as I said, swearing in will be October 1st, Monday. I next want to say, and I think some of you got this information via perhaps reading between the lines. Thank you, everyone who was at the RARE meeting, and your assistance helped Joe Marucci and the commission make a decision to not agree on the membership change that was before them as an amendment. Rather, and thank you, Attorney Albright was there as well. And so for that, they're going to look at it again. It's recommended by Joe Marucci that the council actually talk about it on October 2nd in advance of their next meeting. So on October 10th, everyone will have any thoughts the council wants to make sure we share. Next, third, Public Works Director is something that needs to be worked on, and I've suggested, I think you've heard me suggest, that it be combined with oversight of the parks, not from a recreational standpoint, but more from a facility standpoint, and working in concert with the Parks Commission and be the liaison. So I've drafted a job description. I have 2 copies here. I'm going to pass one this way and one this way. And the point is, if you have a real interest in what the job description reads like, please scribble on it or talk to me after the meeting. And especially since this one, I'd like it to stop with our attorney, Albright, because I have a legal question, given the way the charter reads, Director of Public Works and Services, the charter reads, and I think a more descriptive title is to add parks. I'm not sure if it can be done. So what you see there is a draft, and hopefully with legal help, we'll make it right before we advertise. Before we advertise, it also needs to go to the Civil Service Commission, if there's any change of title, and that would be October 1st. So when all those dots have been dotted and T's crossed, we hope to interview, and that brings up the last point I want to make about that. I guess the first time it was advertised, 4, 5 applications, not a great many. The second time it was advertised, there were 0 applications. So you know what the definition of insanity is. So it's a suggestion that we try something different and use what's known as, quote unquote, a professional outreach approach, which involves a search firm to do electronic national dissemination of the ad. This is not a search firm process like you're doing for the city manager. It's not like the public safety director where we use an assessment center. Rather, it's a lesser expense commitment on the part of the city to make sure that everyone nationally versus via all the search engines knows that this job opportunity exists. So the cost would be, we've gotten 2 proposals. We may get others, but it's between $3,000 to $4,000. And then if we do any print media advertising, which is likely we should, then that's some additional out-of-pocket cost for that. And we'll have the assistance of some professional national search engines helping us as well. So it's within the city manager's discretionary authority if it stays under 5,000, but it's borderline, so I wanted you to know about it. If you have any thoughts, be sure to share them with me or better ideas.
Sure. Can I jump in?
Sure.
What about doing training or asking our in-house personnel if they are interested or train someone, maybe as opposed to, I mean, your insanity comment, I think, gave me this idea, to see if we could just build a director in-house, if there's, the water licensing training or things like that, just rearrange schedules so that person can do all the training they need to do and get them able to do that.
I believe that it's a very good idea, and we have looked for the person who is in that, who wants to take on that capacity. The S1 license is probably the biggest barrier, and I know Randy was part of this, before I arrived on the scene, so please chime in. I know a number of personnel, some very capable personnel, have attempted that license and not been successful. So that's another definition. If we keep trying that route, I'm not sure we'll end up anywhere. We are fearful that eventually our temporary arrangement with AEW will be no longer acceptable to our state authorities, so we do want to keep moving forward in one way or another. Any additional thoughts on that, Randy?
No, I think that's the biggest hurdle that we have is we're being pressed, and I'm surprised that the state has been silent on the fact that we don't have an in-house S1 license on staff.
Have we tried at all to go to the different schools that are training these people? Like, if you're getting somebody from Parks and Rec, probably the place you would go is Central. And otherwise, if you're looking for somebody for DPW experience, you're going to look for somebody at Michigan Tech. Have we done any type of recruiting from those locations?
Well, we've tried to get out into the areas, for municipal purposes because of it being a municipal license, and we've tried that in the past, and we tried that. This will be like the 5th attempt. It's not just 2. We tried 2, several years ago, and we didn't get anywhere on it, which has added to the frustration level of trying to fill this position. I think the issue of trying to go nationally might bring a little bit more more opportunity. The issue you're going to have outside of the state of Michigan is what do they call an S1 license. So we're going to have to be cognizant of that as we go forward. I think if we can get it further out, you know, we've been successful in the past doing it in the area, and I'm talking about the Detroit area and Ann Arbor areas, but at this point, it doesn't look like that's gonna work for us on this one.
I just don't think, given all the things that are happening within the city and the region, I don't think you want to relax any of the requirements related to the DPW qualifications. I think those have to maintain with a college degree. I think maybe with parks, you could relax somewhat because you have a number of people in the area that can give guidance to that level. But from the perspective of DPW director, I think you need to maintain that, you have to have that S1 license and you have to have that person qualified.
Well, and the hard part that you find with this license is a lot of the engineering firms are the one that have it because it's skewed towards engineering, which makes it that much more difficult to obtain. So, but then you get into the realm of the engineering firms or engineers that don't have any municipal background, and then, you know, now you've got a problem the other direction. So, it's a difficult area to fill, but needed, obviously mandated by the state.
It's a very difficult position to fill. I think that's why we see so many of them on the list of people on the MML list or anything else. It's a really difficult position. But it's critical.
Mm-hmm.
So your goal, Mr. Cotton, then is to do a search.
Yes, initiate the search via this new job description that we're getting input on from everybody and their brother, and then get it on the national websites, as I mentioned, and then have your new manager will be in place. So at least applications will be coming in. They'll be able to start, the ball already be in motion, so we don't just, you know, wait another 2 months before we start something going forward. So next item is the DDA requested that the city look at striping the parking lines on Gratiot as once existed. So Joe Marucci has done a report on that, and DDA is going to meet later this month and review it. The cost is really pretty reasonable. It's less than $1,000. And I wanted you to know that for safety reasons as well as commercial support reasons for the DDA, that's something that we're looking at.
You know, when we did the walkability studies a few years ago, the one thing that walkability recommended was that we do the pedestrian crosswalks with bricks or something so you could clearly see what they were, and then outline those. And they wanted it at Gratiot and 9 Mile Road, and particularly over at Cousins, where the high school students were going, and down at Evergreen. But when we looked at the application of their recommendations, the problem was MDOT was considering completely reconstructing Gratiot. And that was the reason why we held back on it at the time, because we thought if that was so necessary and you needed it for walkability, then it should be inherent within that contract. But since they just blacktopped it, and I don't think there's any plans to do Gratiot at the southern end here for a much longer period of time, because they even put off Roseville for length of time. You heard any more?
I thought I heard after they did the resurfacing that it was 8 years down the road before they'd reconstruct.
Because that was one of the reasons, and that was 3 or 4 years ago, that they were going to reconstruct, but I don't think Gratiot wore down as bad as what they'd anticipated.
From a walkability standpoint, crosswalks that are 10 and even 15, 20 feet wide, there's one in New Orleans that's at least 30 feet wide, maybe could be considered, but I think MDOT's going to need to be part of that conversation. But if that's something that council...
They're not going to be willing to tear it up now that they just
No.
put it down.
No, that would be paint.
So
Yeah.
so Joe is just looking into striping?
Right, so parking can be along the curb line. Sometimes you're in a lane thinking it's a travel lane, and it's actually a parking lane, so that's a safety issue, as well as merchants through the DDA would like us to, to emphasize the fact that you can stop and, frequent their shop, so.
Sounds like Joe. Joe Solomon.
Don't recall who, but it was at a DDA meeting. So two last things. The sledding hill, on occasion, Sweeney Hill, there's been discussions about its maintenance and when will this happen, when will that happen. So we have a standard operating procedure that DPW has worked on with me, and it's pretty straightforward. And if anyone wants to look at it, that's how we're operating it. And the last thing is crack sealing has been requested on a number of occasions, and we have 4 parking lots that are being crack sealed. It's those, not being crack sealed, they're being quoted for crack sealing. That will come to you on October 2nd. It'll be over $5,000, so for your consideration. That concludes my updates prior to the tips. So, the third one here is a little bit more on email etiquette and succession planning. I'm adding that because, next slide, this slide is from Heidi Voorhees during the training we had, and I just wanted to underscore a couple of things that relate, and then review the documents, the charter, the administrative rules, some other documents that relate to what we heard, and just kind of see how the correlation is. So this one is about mutual respect and city and council members understanding each other's roles. And the point is that all parties have some subject expertise, and the point is communication to avoid lack of communication. Next slide. So with that kind of teamwork, you should look for city managers that share information equally with elected officials. The city manager, of course, enacts policies. City manager will try to help each elected official be successful, and I emphasize each, because the city manager is helping one elected official. They're not trying to hurt any other elected official, but it's really about becoming more effective as a group, because that help might involve some information sharing, which ultimately should be shared with everybody, and that's where the group comes in. Elected officials, Heidi says, ideally will praise publicly, thank you, and criticize privately, thank you also for that. In either case, the job gets done better. Next. Transparency is very important. Clear direction to the city manager. Many city managers don't hear correctly or don't perceive correctly, so it doesn't hurt to be as clear as possible. The city manager is supposed to provide information that's understandable, not overkill, not indecipherable. Elected officials are supposed to are free to interact with department heads when it comes to information. This is Heidi's slide, but not give direction. We're going to come back to that in a minute. And the city manager is supposed to be prompt and have follow-through. Next. So I compared all that to the charter, and there's a lot of correlation, a lot of good correlation. So this chapter and section of the charter says the council and each of its members shall deal with the administrative branch of city government solely through the manager, except for the Department of Finance and Law. I think our attorney will say that the Department of Finance is maybe not current any longer, but for now, let's just leave it there. And neither the council nor any member thereof shall give any order or direction, either publicly or privately, to any of the subordinates of the manager. So that's a pretty black and white standard. And that is intended, I think, by the charter writers. The intent was to avoid communication and make sure the authority is clear, so there's one master, which is a principle of management and control, and a hierarchy that's supposed to deal with your business more effectively. I found it interesting. Just a few sections later, the charter makes it clear that the council may create departments, create new departments, combine existing departments, and establish temporary departments for special work. So, although the city manager is your employee and your primary employee, other than the city attorney, you are also in a position of adding to the organization in any which way that the city manager then needs to be responsible to you for also. So I think that, once again, gives you the opportunity to govern the big questions. You can make big changes and not expect to have any resistance from any other staff member. That is your role and responsibility, and exercise it. Next slide. So the administrative rules and regulations, I found it interesting here as I was looking through. According to that, which is a document that the Civil Service Commission governs their actions, but I think it has the force of ordinance, and I'll defer to Randy on that. Canvassing of members of the council directly or indirectly in order to obtain preferential consideration in connection with any appointment shall disqualify the candidate for appointment. Wow. I've never seen that before, but that's pretty black and white as well. So although I sought your input during a meet and greet with our public safety directors, no one applied any pressure. And according to this, had you, that would have been bad for the applicant. So I thought that was maybe something to put forward because it's a little distinct and unique, and I thought I should share it with you. Next. Administrative orders number 18 is administrative orders is a publication of the city manager. You've probably seen there's maybe 30 some in there, and it's delineated. It refers back to the charter, and I've given you copies of the entire one in your packet. And it delineates no request of information from city employees other than department heads. So we talked in our meeting with Heidi as principal of GovHR in our training that it's always good to show interest and stop and say hello, and you've been invited by the fire department to spend the night in the firehouse, and some of you do on ride-alongs. That I think is obviously different. It's done through the department heads or through the city manager or both to give you information, and it's so you're not really going out of your way requesting information from them. But please pay attention to that if it's not something like what I just described that's scheduled. Department heads are to provide prompt information about their department to the city council, except for personnel matters. That's the purview of the city manager, who's the head of the personnel, and it's defined a little bit more in the copy you have. No direction for action of any type is supposed to be given to any of the personnel. You're supposed to see the city manager for that action. The manager is supposed to get back to you. And this is interesting, that I think is very good as well, that I've not seen before, but I applaud. No disparaging, disrespectful, embarrassing, humiliating, defamatory, insubordinate, or otherwise harmful comments are permitted by city staff about city affairs or city personnel. And that's, of course, very professional, and it's interesting that it was actually put in writing. So in your packet is more information. Next. So in conclusion, I contrasted what we heard from Heidi as a national expert on this matter, what we looked at in our charter. But some of this was administrative rules, which is subject to the city manager, writing. It's not wasn't part of a vote on council or part of a vote by the community. So are there any changes you'd like to see in these black and white directives, or?
What, weren't administrative rules approved by city council?
No, they're actions of the city manager to.
Right, I understand they are, but didn't we approve them?
We approve,
Oh, the administrative rules. I believe they are approved, yeah.
we approve the administrative rules as well as the pay grade, and the pay grade just happens to have the other, grading information on it. But we're not actually supposed to approve that part, I don't think.
We didn't make it changes on our own, but we did approve them, and if we saw something that we didn't like I think with the pay grade, there were a couple minimal changes that we suggested be changed or reviewed. Is that right, Randy? You were,
The admin rules and regs do have some of the operational activities, as well as non-union benefits and things like that. The administrative orders were issued by the city manager, and it was more operational. I mean, there's ones on, you're not going to drive a city vehicle and text, just those types of things. Most of them are directed towards the employees of here's what you can and can't do. And they're outside of the admin rules and regs. And that's kind of where this administrative order 18 came from.
So if there's anything you'd like different for the new city manager between now and then, feel free to let us know. Meanwhile, they're going to get the similar briefing when they arrive here. Next. The last item tonight is succession planning, and basically more is better. So according to the theory, succession planning should be done for each level of supervision, for the purpose of providing backup, on-the-job training, continuity, institutional history, job enrichment for the people involved. Please note, though, it would cost money, because usually you need to pay people to be at a little higher level of proficiency and/or a deputy or some sort of lieutenant role. Next. A status here in the finance department, you're doing what the theory calls for. A deputy finance director is budgeted and is being advertised, and that is certainly what it meets the theory. However, I'm not sure economy has permitted that in all other departments. The most pressing is the fire department in relation to some backup command personnel for the purpose of the deputy chief, fire chief's role. So other departments, not so much either. And I'll be encouraging the new city manager to be doing more. And if you have any additional thoughts on that subject, same thing. Make sure that I know so they can get a head start on that. Next. Next item is, we've really already covered some of the charter, trust, and communications. So I think the care and nurture of institutions is what I'll focus on next time. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Cotton?
I did want to respond to one thing. I almost brought this administrative order to you because I have a copy of it. Because we discussed at leadership, the leadership training, how employees were afraid to just have conversations with council. The administrative orders are completely under the city manager's discretion to put out. But when you read this, you know, you get through everything, and then in big bold letters, you could be fired, you know, if you do any of these things. That's why employees were afraid to speak to us on any level, even just personal. So I think that should be cleared up, or I'd like it cleared up by the next city manager, what's actually appropriate and what's not.
We'll look at that. Thank you.
Mr. Cotton, with the badges I was asking you about, how is that going? So that council, when we go to, you know, conferences and things like that, we can represent Eastpointe and people will know who we are. How is that going?
It is on a piece of paper sitting next to my computer waiting to be delegated to the right personnel. So that means later this week it'll be underway. Right now it's there to be acted on.
I think that's a good idea, because it doesn't make any difference where we go. If you go to Roseville or whatever, they always have their name. And
Right.
I think it's, we have those cute little pins, but I think the badge is just a small badge that says your name and what city you came from, and maybe the symbol of the city, I think is a good addition. We tried to do that a while back, and somebody felt that it was frivolous money. But I think it's important when you go to a location that people know where you come from.
Actually, members of the Beautification Commission have them.
I know. I still have mine.
MML will provide a badge for you for this week, but yes, I agree with the mayor. And
Yeah, I believe as we growing as a city and we're getting stronger with the .gov and the badges and things like that, it's gonna, you know, show credibility and make people look at us, you know, more important, as a more important city as we grow, so.
Perhaps Mary Van Heren's husband can cut some extra badges for us, because the Art Commission's making their own.
Well, Mary did offer putting the Family Town logo, if we bring her a jacket. She said she was gonna do the logos for us, but she only said one jacket, so.
Ryan, I know who to delegate that Post-it note to.
you guys are helping me. Sorry.
And you know, you can also go over to Jay's Tees, because they have all the artwork and everything over there, so you can have your own shirts and everything made as well.
Okay, well, she's doing it for free, so I'm gonna go with Mary first, and then I'll do some extra at, one each, she said.
So, Mr. Cotton, the other day, I went over to Michigan First Credit Union, and one of my pet peeves are the number of handicap signs that we have in close proximity, like they should be, to stores. My biggest pet peeve is over by the dollar store at 9 Mile Road in Kelly, where Aldi's is right there. And they've moved their handicap parking, and it's really nice, it's very appropriate, and you can never find anybody in that does not have the handicap sticker on their license plate or hanging from their mirror. So when I went to Michigan First Credit Union the other day, on the sign that has handicap parking only, or this is for a handicap van, there was another sign and it said $100 fine if you park here and you don't have the necessary sticker or thing. That's the only place I've seen in Eastpointe that has that, but I noticed that there wasn't anybody parking there that did not have the appropriate thing. And I'm a little bit more cognizant of it just because I'm walking with a cane, but I can tell you beforehand, I was so mortified to see all these people that were walking with a van or using a van or a wheelchair and not having a place to park because all those places have been filled by someone else.
Thank you.
So
We'll
it's a
look at
little
that.
sign, if you just go look at the Michigan First Credit Union, you can see, and it's applicable that you could just put it on any one of our signs that we currently have.
And we'll check with our ordinance, of course, to make sure it
And
correlates with the
I
fine.
believe that's the state ordinance, because Frank Accavetti got that through when the first year he was up in Lansing.
Thank you. Will do.
Anyone else have any questions? All right. Let's go on to Mr. Blum, our finance director.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, I've got 3 items on the agenda, which seems like more than enough, but there's a couple things I want to bring up. First of all, I've got about a week and a half to finish things up before the auditors grace our presence. They will be here Monday, October 1st for their 2-week and a few more extra days after that. So that will be going on. I don't know how much any of you have heard, but there is a Michigan Indigent Defense Commission. It's a new state law that mandates extra expenses for public defense of the indigent. And it takes effect October 1st. We have been jumping through a few hoops to get our plan approved, and there is state grant money that is out there that is supposed to reimburse us for 100% of the increase in our cost. We're working on the final, basically that we have to present a budget to them so the state then determines how much they're going to give us. My understanding is they will give it to us all up front on the state's fiscal year. So sometime in October, we'll just get a big plop of money, and that's what we're supposed to use for the next 12 months to handle the public defenders and all of the extra requirements that are out there. They've also got Treasury to approve a mandatory separate special revenue fund to track all the revenues and expenses, and that also starts October 1st. So there's going to be some growing pains to get everything recorded in the correct bucket because it's not court operations, it's only the expenses tied into public defense. So that is coming down the pike, and this is only covering, what did they call it? I don't know, there's like 1 through 4, whatever term they used, and now they're working on 5 through 8, a bunch of new requirements. So there will be more to come on that one, but it is a statewide mandate, so.
Was there anything more to it than just paying the attorneys more?
We will be required to pay for expert witnesses on the defendant's behalf. There is certain requirements of the attorneys have to have an initial meeting with the defendant within a certain amount of time, which currently that they don't necessarily do. A lot of times they meet their attorney when they show up in court. So there's a lot of extra steps the attorneys will have to do, as well as, yes, pay the attorneys more to do the work. But yeah, there's a lot of additional expense. Right now, our budget is our projected budget for the first 4 items is going to be about $477,000 a year. The city's portion of that is about $51,000. So we should be getting a check from the state for 420-ish to cover all the extra expenses.
So, Mr. Blum, have you heard any more about the 100% veterans disability, that the money should be coming back to the individual cities? That was the other unfunded mandate.
Yeah, I know there was legislation introduced, but I have not seen it move through committee.
And then what about any more on the service lines, that the cities would be mandated to replace all the service lines that are lead with copper?
Yeah. They're handling that under the lead and copper standards. Can't even speak tonight. They're talking about having a state grant to reimburse the communities for the replacement. There is some concern that it's a private water line on private property, and the city has no authority to go on and force the replacement, even if we're getting reimbursed. So there's discussion on modifying it, but at this point, there's no state law that will mandate it and no state law that will reimburse us
I know
for the
that
replacements.
there's a meeting coming up on the last one, on the service line replacement, that's gonna be held in Ann Arbor, is gonna be the closest one. There's another one, I believe, in Marshall, another one in the western part of the state. But I think some people are forcing the issue to be discussed at MML. So if you see anything about it, please go and attend that session so we can find out a little bit more and how far it's progressing through the legislature.
Because that could be very expensive. Well, I don't think we have as big of a lead issue as like Detroit. Theirs is going to be massive. I know when we did the Topher water main project, of all those homes, they only identified 7 that had a lead service line. And if I remember correctly, we actually replaced it at that time.
That's good news.
Yeah.
But that's in a fairly new neighborhood.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything for Finance Director? Let's move on to our City Attorney, Mr. Albright.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. With regard to the DOJ case, as the council is aware, motions for summary judgment were argued back on August 1st of this year. Given the complexity of the issues in that case, I'm not surprised that we have not received a written decision from the court yet. Just for comparison purposes, I argued a relatively simple sidewalk case in the circuit court exactly 3 months ago, and I'm still waiting on a written opinion on that case. So these things do take time. As soon as we do receive it, though, I'll be sure to circulate a copy of the opinion once we do get it from the district court. So
Were they given a number of days, 30 to 45 days?
The judge initially said he'd try to have something out in a short period of time, but I think that given the, again, the complexity of the issues and all of the evidence in the case and the expert testimony, that I'm not surprised at the amount of time that it's taking. Yeah.
Right. Any questions for Mr. Albright? Yes, we did get your bills.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to new business, and our first item would be the bid award for assessing the third-party administration agreement. If you have any questions, we have the 2 people that are in charge of our assessment. And maybe you might just step up to the microphone and just tell us a little bit, because there are new people that weren't here when we signed their initial agreement. One of the reasons why we chose you was because of you're a level 4.
I am not a level 4. I'm a level 3. My husband, who's also a partner with me, he is a level 4.
And you're a rare breed in the state of Michigan.
Our business type, or business, or
No, I
level
think
4s?
just your level 3 and 4.
Correct. It's becoming more and more because more of them are getting older and retiring, so they're trying to, educate more to get into the business. But my name is Lisa Griffin. I am the owner of Assessment Administration Services. I believe we started in 2015, was with Eastpointe. But we've, truly enjoyed our partnership with Eastpointe, and, we've done a lot of projects that Jeff here, who also got his level 3 as he's been working here through, at Eastpointe. And he can probably speak a little bit to some of those things that we've worked on since we've been here. So I'll let Jeff handle it from here.
So, going back when we started, it's been a learning process. A lot of the things that we've done as far as projects has helped clean up the tax tribunals. When we took over originally, we did have a backlog of appeals at the state, mostly commercial properties. And we've worked really hard to get that cleaned up, and we're caught up. I think this year alone, I want to say we've only had 3 or 4 filings for commercial properties, which is, as far as record keeping electronically that I can find, is the lowest number we've had, and I think that goes back to maybe 2010. So that's progressing along very well. We're focused on, the state is requiring us to visit 20% of the properties every year on an annual basis, and that way, in theory, once every 5 years, each property will be visited to ensure accuracy of what we have on the record, the sketches, and what's on the assessment itself. So we've been doing that the last 2 years, really been hitting that hard. Just this year, we started a project that the state is now kind of cracking down on people about the exempt properties, making sure we have records, good sketches, applications from all the people like churches, nonprofit organizations, because all that stuff needs to be accounted for and applications need to be submitted. So we sent that out to everybody this year. We did have a good response rate originally. I think there is 10 or 15 that still need to be returned to us. So we did just recently mail them out letters again, reminding them that we do need that information. We've really done a lot here at Eastpointe. We've kind of implemented a system to scan in a lot of the documents. That's all public record. So that's available online through the web portal. So any one of the residents or taxpayers or anybody can go to the city website on the public record, view all that information as far as, you know, the deeds, property transfers, sketches. A lot of the information is online now, which is really convenient for the residents. And just, you know, when I came 3 years ago, I didn't really know much about Eastpointe, but obviously as time grows, becoming more and more familiar with the community obviously makes me better at my job, but I'm still learning, you know, trying to get better at my job. So it's been a great 3 years so far. It's been great working with everybody as far as council people. You know, I'm on the tax reversion committee, so that's been going good this year. And just the administration, it's been really nice to work with everybody. So we hope to continue that great relationship we have.
Anybody have any questions for Lisa or Jeff?
You guys say you are the only company that can do, you know, you can do the work for Eastpointe. I'm like, because I'm reading it here. I say you are the only, there are only 2 companies that provide the services that Eastpointe needs, and you are the only one that can do the service.
There's 2 companies. We're actually the only one basically in Macomb County that does this type of service with contract, you know, with assessing services. There is another one in Wayne County, or, you know, on the west side. They're pretty large as well, and they do basically that side, and we kind of do this side. So, yeah, there's not a lot of companies that do what we do. I know we just recently went through a City of Fraser, you know, through the same process here, and they were looking for bids, and I believe we were the only one that bid at the time, because there's just not, you know, because of the insurances and different types of things that we carry, you know, you just don't have a lot of people or companies that will do that.
I guess what I'm asking is because since you feel like you're the only company that can work for Eastpointe, then you can go up as much as you want every 3 years if you want to.
I think what we did originally when we entered into the agreement, we had agreed to like a 2% per year. And with this new contract, we, you know, just kept it at the same 2%. So we didn't, increase the percentage increase. We just kind of carried on from where we left off.
So maybe, Randy, you might explain how we ended up getting Lisa's company to put in a bid for us.
Yes, in 2014, 2015 timeframe, we did it in-house. We had our own assessing department. We had some retirements, we had to replace people, and like Lisa said, finding people with the proper certifications was becoming close to impossible because nobody's going into this field anymore. I mean, realistically, it's not drawing people in. The one person that we had on staff, staff that was level 3, she took a new job up in Shelby Township, and we did not have the prospects of replacing her with a certified person. So we came up with the idea of approaching them. When we went through it, we had 3 full-time people. One had already left. We had our assessor was leaving us, and we were down to 1 appraiser that would have been on staff, which could not have handled the job. At the time, switching over to this company actually saved us it's in the write-up, $62,000 or $63,000 a year. With their cap on the increases at 2%, that amount has grown. I mean, that's a given just from the cost of health care increases, pension contributions, everything else that has gone up with in-house staff. I have not gone back to figure out what it would cost to bring that operation back in-house, but if we could find the people, it would cost us more than what this contract cost us.
And we also explored the possibility of going with the county.
Yeah, briefly, yeah. Going with the county, taking it over, would have increased our cost $300,000 a year over what we had already cost us to do. Basically, they didn't want to do it, and so they just gave us a nice high price to make sure we didn't go with them. Because that was, alternative 1.
So some cities do contract with the county, though?
Yep.
In
Yes.
Macomb County, I believe, right now, there are none. Different,
Oh, they've all got out of it?
yeah.
Okay. It's probably because of the price.
Wayne County was doing several, they got out of it. They did not want to do it anymore either. Oakland County is probably the only one that still does assessing and equalization. But right now, the Macomb County, they do not have any assessing units.
Okay. Thanks.
Just a point of information, it's been 3 years, so I don't think anyone remembers. The past contract used CPI instead of 2%, so that was the one. That's the only change that I saw in the contract, actually, so.
And I believe the current CPI going forward for 2019 will be like around 2.5%, somewhere around there. But we did that in the beginning, and then we found that people who like to do budgets, they like to know what the number's going to be. And, with the CPI, you just don't know. It could be anywhere up to 5%.
There was a time when we came to the Board of Review, and there would be people lining up back and forth just over their taxes. And now it's such a minimal numbers, so I know that you've been really very, very effective at working with the assessments.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, our board of reviews in March, when people could come in and, appeal their assessments, I've been pretty, I don't want to say boring, but there's a lot of time gaps because just nobody's coming in. And I'm not complaining. But yeah, we've had a positive, that's working more towards, getting the assessments in line and making sure things are correct and accurate, and, less people showing up is better news for us, meaning that we're doing our jobs right.
It also helps when the market is increasing.
Yeah.
So that helps us too.
And it definitely helps when you can reduce the number of tribunals.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did see in here you had a seminar for the public. I don't know if we've ever done that before, if that would be of interest so people know, because I think it's some area that most people don't really understand.
We haven't, I don't think we did it here. No, we haven't done it here. We've offered it. You know, the turnout is not as great as you think it would be. But, so, you know, it's available. We do have a PowerPoint presentation that we do, but, you know, if that's something that you'd like us to do, we could do that in the future, or even around, like around board review time, you know, we can do that.
Okay.
I think that might be a good idea, maybe in February or so forth, between taxes, so people would understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
All right, can we have a motion, please? Unless you have more questions.
I was just going to say, if I had written any more of a glowing report, you would have thought they paid me to write it. But the reality is, Jeff has a whiteboard in his office, and when he took over, that whiteboard was completely filled with pending tribunals. Every June 30th, I have to get a report of any outstanding tribunals as part of the audit. Last year, we had 0 outstanding. This year, we have 1, and it's a commercial property, a fairly large one. I mean, that's how much of the backlog, it's just gone. It doesn't exist anymore because they just stay on top of it, so.
Okay. Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'll motion then, a motion to award the bid and authorize the Deputy City Clerk to execute an agreement with Assessment Administration Services, LLC, to administer and provide complete assessing services for the city's required assessing activities for the period of September 1, 2018 to August 31, 2021, at an initial cost of $247,800 per year with an increase in the annual cost by 2% each September 1.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Our next item is the special land use approval for the limited pharmacy in the medical building, and I don't know whether the people are here, but Mary Van Haren is, and a number of planning commission people.
I'll stand ready to answer any questions.
I'll make a motion to approve the special land use for a limited pharmacy with no drive-through facility to be located at 22850 Kelly Road in accordance with the recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Sorry about that, Mary,
No, it's my pleasure.
but don't go too far away.
I'll stand ready for the next one.
All right, item B is the introduction and the first reading of ordinance number 1157, which rezones the property located at 17059 10 Mile. Do we have a motion to that effect, please?
Madam Mayor, I will motion to introduce and give reading to ordinance number 1157, which would rezone the property located at 17059 10 Mile, parcel number 2-14-20-353-007, assessor's plat number 30, east 10.42 feet of lot 477 and all of lot 478 from B3 to I1, and schedule the ordinance for second reading and consideration for adoption at the October 2nd regular council meeting.
Support.
Move and support. Did you have any comments on this?
No, I think it's, I'll say that it's a new business in town, Sterling North, Michigan, and automotive manufacturing company, and we're happy to have them in the community, and they're looking forward to doing an expansion onto this property that they're asking for rezoning tonight, and for parking, loading dock, and a building expansion. So I think they'll be a good new partner in the city.
Are they hiring people from the city? Are they looking for opening jobs up?
I don't know
No.
that specifically, but I know they were bringing, quite a few jobs to the city, so very likely.
I was just curious, is Sterling North, they own the land, but then Sigma is are they two different
No,
companies, or is it the
Sigma
same
is out
company?
now. Sigma has actually sold it to Sterling North,
Oh.
and they're a Canadian company. Sterling North is their United States name, or I'm not sure what the actual term is, but they have a couple of buildings in Sterling Heights and do the same sort of manufacturing of automotive parts.
Now, what about the industrial exemption we gave them?
Well,
That just transfers to the new
So
owner?
Sigma let that go, and they never filed the proper paperwork to get that. So this company is interested in seeing if they can get that rejuvenated, and they'll have to do an application and the paperwork to do that.
Okay.
All right, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Is that the last thing you have? Item C is the adoption of resolution number 1867, which is a pension underfunding corrective action plan. Mr. Blum, do you want to explain this, please?
Yes, this is a new state requirement. If you remember back in February, I want to say, it could have been March, we requested a waiver of the state. They denied 95% of all waivers, which then forced us to come back and actually submit a corrective action plan. We will be doing this most likely every year, and the state will review all of these, and they will determine that our corrective action plan doesn't meet the state statute. We will be in violation, but they have removed any teeth that the state has to do anything about it. So they'll say bad Eastpointe, and we get to do it again next year. The reality is they want the pension fund at 60% funded within 5 years. The MERS projection has it 7 or 8 years out, assuming that we can make the contribution amounts. I think if you look in a couple pages back, one of the MERS schedules with the graphs, we're currently at 3.9 million a year in contributions. The MERS projection has that growing to about 8.8 million by 2032, which is completely unaffordable. I do have a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock with MERS to discuss this particular aspect of it and see what their plans are. But we have to submit this request or this application. We will be denied, and then we'll see what the state does from there. But it's a requirement that we submit it, and it's a requirement that it have legislative approval for the submission, which is why it's on the agenda tonight.
So if MERS hadn't changed all their assumptions, they changed them in the last year, correct?
The only change they made is to take the earnings estimates from 8% to 7.75. The biggest thing is the continued shortening of the timeline for funding the unfunded portion. We originally, when we moved to MERS, they were going to take it down to 15 years and then kind of leave it there. That's the biggest change. They're actually taking it down to 0, and any pension changes will start at 15 years and work down to 0. So in the past, we were at a 30-year funding, and it was just kind of rolling 30 years, yet never made any progress. It made sense to reduce that. Taking it down to 0 is going to be, well, you can see the numbers. It'll be catastrophic financially.
Do you think there's any chance that you can change MERS' opinion on that?
I'll let you know at the next meeting. I'll see what they have to say, but part of it is we're not going to be the only community in this situation. And I know they recognize that, and I just don't know that outside of changing their plans, if there is any real solution to it.
And some of the communities are going to just plain 7% as opposed to 7.5. Is it a MERS requirement to do the 7.5?
They're looking at making some modifications like that every couple of years. They don't want to do it all at once, so they're kind of doing a step down. Last year was the 7.75 change. I expect in another year or two we will see a 7.5.
Okay.
So you said we'll probably get denied. Is that because, well, I see section 7 here. It said to confirm the 4 items, and I only see 2 X's
Correct.
in the boxes.
And one of the items is 60% funded within 5 years, and the other item is basically the annual required contribution affordable and sustainable.
Okay.
And the answer to both of those is no.
And so how many of these corrective action plans did the treasurer send back? It was quite a high percentage, wasn't it?
I was told 95% were rejected at the initial round, so.
And then so this plan is consistent, like the first 5 years with our 5-year plan, though, is what you were saying? I think like we have budgeted for what you put in this.
I've always used a
Plan.
5% increase in pension when I do the 5-year chart. This came out after that was done, and I haven't gone back. I believe the contribution amounts in this are actually going to be higher than the 5%.
Okay,
We'll start dealing with that when budget rolls around again.
okay. Do you think in the somewhat near future, you just adjust those and just see what it looks like with the?
Once I get through audit, I can take a look at that, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Thanks.
Yep.
Do we have a motion on the table?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I motion to adopt resolution number 1867- pension underfunding corrective action plan and authorize the finance director to execute all necessary documents related to this pension underfunding corrective action plan application.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido.
Yes.
Item E is the request for professional services for the water rate study. And this was requested during budget time.
But was there, I guess, Mr. Blum, did you have a strong feeling on who was chosen, or was that just because that was,
Lowest.
okay?
Yeah.
It did look to me like Plant Moran had more, it seemed like they were focused on actual, like, plan for meeting their material. I don't know if anyone else thought that.
Say that again?
Like an actual plan for, like, setting the rates, like, long-term, I think, years out. Right?
Oh, okay.
Haven't we used Plant Moran previously for consulting for water rate?
They did a study in 2006 as part of an SRF grant, I think it was, not a loan, it was the grant.
And were we using their guidelines?
Not their template, but their guidelines, yes. Their template's a little convoluted, and it's like 17 different Excel tabs all linked up, and it's like, there's a much simpler way to do it.
I think, just the one comment I had, I think it'd probably be nice if it was more of a third party than AEW, since they do all of our engineering right now and deal with a lot of our water and sewer. I was just thinking it might make more sense to go with one of the other two. I don't know if necessarily I'd have a,
And Plant Moran
Preference.
does all of our auditing, so
right, but they don't deal with the water, sewer,
they
any,
did, they did give
like,
it, they audit all of our sewer rate sets over
Well, I know
in
they-
in the sanitary district.
yeah, no, I know they audit everything. I'm just saying AEW does a lot of work with water and sewer funds. That's all. And Plant Moran audits everything. I mean, they're,
Actually, I thought having Kyle Seidel do the water rate study was a benefit because he does the sanitary district rates. And it wouldn't be anybody that's specifically on the Eastpointe account. But they're all fairly close, and it's like, doesn't really matter.
I've never even heard of this third company.
Mr. Cotton put me onto them. He had used them out in Holland a few years ago.
Spring Lake, but close enough.
Okay.
The only reason I didn't bring them up, they have reimbursable expenses on there. So I was like, I don't know how much that will cost.
Traveling back and forth from
Yeah. So the other,
Spring Lake.
Right.
Any other questions for Mr. Blum? All right, let's have a motion.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I motion to award the request for professional services to perform a water sewage rate study to Anderson, Eckenstein, and Westrick in the amount of $5,000 and authorize administration to direct AEW to begin work.
Do we have support?
Support.
Now, I guess so, did no one else, share? I just thought it'd be maybe a better idea to go with one of the other two. No one else, if no one else,
I didn't have strong feelings either way, to be honest. I think Kyle, I don't think he ever comes and works on Eastpointe projects. I've never seen him here.
No, but he,
16 years I've been here.
no, he's not worked over here at all.
And I know he
Who was the person that worked from AEW that used to do all of our water rates? An older gentleman.
Do you remember his name?
I can picture him.
Yeah, I could see the face, so I couldn't tell you the name.
But the formula is pretty standard that they've used forever.
and so I'd assume then we will see all the detail, they'll just give us some sort of report once they're done with some sort of numbers to look at and some sort of comments
Right.
to look at, and then how far forward, because I don't believe it exactly
I
said.
thought they were doing a 5-year projection. I know I've got to give them 3 years of history.
They were the ones that for sure asked for very specific information. The others were more general sounding.
No matter who you get, the big question that's going to play into this is GLEWA and GLEWA's contract. And they're just starting off doing a huge amount of capital improvement that's going to affect us. So GLEWA is the number one thing that's probably going to change your rates, your rate structure in the not-too-distant future. Because they bounce up and down all the time.
I just want to understand what our resulting product roughly would look like.
Yeah, I don't see it in the write-up, but it's my understanding it would be a 5-year projection of water rates.
Okay.
This is right here.
Well, Mr. DeMonico, your concern was the fact that, like, AEW would be like the architects we would use for future projects, and that might affect, that was a concern like that.
No, I think he was concerned because we use AEW for engineering now.
Right, for future projects through the water department.
Right, so if the infrastructure costs, depending how that worked out, I don't know how, they come up with their formula. It just seems like there was a minor conflict. That was all.
Yeah,
I think they're trustworthy and everything, but just to remove the conflict, that's all, just so that it wasn't even a, chance.
I thought about that, but I think no matter who we choose, they're going to take the information on our infrastructure that AEW has already created, no matter, because I think they're focused on the rate side, not, I don't think they'll do any work looking at what needs to be done.
And we've actually been the ones that determine how much work they're going to get to do. They determine what the work is going to be. So we basically say you get so much per year in infrastructure. You go figure out what projects, but there's your bucket of money for projects. So AEW isn't telling us how much we should spend. We're telling them how much we're allowing them to spend or engineer.
Because, when we looked at this going back like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, there were certain periods where we were spending $6 million a year, and then couple years in a row, like $1.5 million, and like, how do we, there's gotta be some sort of discussion though on the infrastructure, on what is best, like, we're not just, if we just give them a number, doesn't there have to be some sort of discussion? I know it's.
Yeah, and that'd be the January capital planning. I believe we're using $4.2 million a year for capital for water sewer combined. They end up spending $6 million one year, then it's going to be, $2 million the next kind of thing. But for a 5-year projection or 6-year projection on the capital, it's supposed to average the 4.2 million a year.
But don't they have to also take in the cost of what we're paying to Detroit Water and Sewer in the past and Glue now?
And that drives the water rate. So the water rate should cover water operations, the sewer rate should cover sewer operations, ready to serve covers capital.
Right.
That's how we've got it set up.
Right.
So, yeah, we have to do projections on what we think GLWA is going to do on the water side, what they're going to do to the sanitary district on the sewer side. That all has to be factored in when the rates are being looked at. The
And couldn't
capital
they-
can be whatever we want it to be.
Couldn't they go a little above what we said, a little below what we said, and show that probably too? I would hope that'd
Yeah.
be part of it then,
Yeah.
the results.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, Sarah, did you want to change the motion, or,
I didn't make a motion.
I know,
Oh, no, I don't want to change my
you
motion.
want to, okay. All right, then let's call the roll.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
No.
Councilmember Lucido.
Yes.
Our next item is approval to purchase a new file server for the water meter reading system. And did you want to discuss this, or did you want Mr. Altus to?
Mr. Altemus, please.
As you saw in my write-up, I also sent out, I hope you all got it, because it was really late in the day. I got the information when we were looking for putting our stuff into the cloud. We actually requested that information yesterday afternoon and did not get it until 3 o'clock this afternoon. So I hope you all got it. If you didn't, I'll kind of give you the highlights of the little surprise when they gave me the cost of that. But basically, when you look at our write-up, the 2 years ago, they started looking at this whole topic of the file server in itself. They were looking at the cloud base in two different areas. They actually were looking at two different companies at that time, and seeing at the time whether they wanted to make a conversion over to a different company and going to cloud-based. That conversation went on for about 1.5 years, and nothing came out of it for IT. So IT kind of got stuck, sitting there wondering what are we doing with a file server. The file server, as it indicates, was bought in 2011, and our current vendor for the meter reading system is saying you can't go any further. And as part of our review that we're going through with our new IT company that's helping me work through taking a look at all our inventory, where it sits, how old it is, and where we need to go for upcoming budget discussions, they made a recommendation that now's the time. So we also went out at the request of Councilman DeMonico to ask, about cloud-based. And as you saw, and as Councilman DeMonico and I talked earlier, caught us a little off guard on that number. I was expecting somewhere, between, based on what I heard the discussion was back in 15 when they started this whole discussion of replacing it. It was somewhere, what Mr. Blum remembers of conversations, somewhere around 5,000 or 6,000 annually. When I got the pricing schedule for this at 51,000, I just about fell out of my chair with the annual fee being 8,600. So obviously, I'm still sitting at my recommendation of using the file server at this point, purchasing it, giving your new city manager and staff the opportunity to actually look further again at this topic and see what we want to do going cloud-based in the future. Luckily, the server will last us 2 to 3 years without any problems, depending on, IT usually is updated every 5 minutes. Nowadays, keeping up with it is impossible, but at least this will give us a stable computer to work on and to work with. So with the enlightenment of the cloud-based cost, I would still recommend we go ahead and purchase the server, get that settled, get it stable, and then move forward with that.
Yeah, I just asked about this cloud-based idea because typically most things these days, the Anna Clara looked like it was a large company when I was researching them. They like to just handle the hardware themselves, so if they have any problems, they can just handle it without going through us, and then we're not in the business of maintaining servers. So that is all why I asked, but I'd have to agree with Mr. Altimus going forward, buying it this time and looking into the future, see if they can, maybe this is not completely accurate here or something. We can do that next time around then, maybe.
Obviously, getting at 3 o'clock, our meeting at 7, it gave us absolutely nothing, no time to go, okay, what is this all about type stuff. But again, like I said before, the staff actually was contemplating looking at 2 companies. And just so you know, how we got into Aclara in the first place was when we got into the Reed system, they were the only game in town. Badger at that time had not come out with their system yet. So that's how we got with Aclara. Badger now has come out with a system, and I believe there is one other one out there too that does the same thing. So it is something that we can work towards and look at in the future.
Any further questions? All right, entertain a motion, please.
Madam Mayor, I will move to waive competitive bidding requirements due to no advantage to the city and approve the purchase of the file server and licenses from Optio/Aclara and authorize the deputy city clerk to execute all necessary documents related to this purchase.
Support.
Move to support it, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Item G is the discussion on the Tax Reversion Committee living document. Mr. Kleinfeld, are you doing this?
Well, we're actually having a tax reversion committee meeting on Monday, I believe, after which we'll have actually recommendations from the council on, or to the council on every type of topic we discuss. So I think I'd rather just table it until our October meeting.
Would you like to make a motion to table it, please?
Before we table it, though, if there's something like specific that someone had in mind that they would like us to discuss and a certain idea, we would definitely would be interested in hearing that idea right now so we could write it down and discuss it at Monday's meeting.
Yeah, I had some ideas. Well, you know, one of the ideas were about the police officers. I know, well, last year we opened it up to people that work for the city. How about letting the police and fire get first rights, and then open it up to the rest of the departments, and then also possibly open it up, if we can't sell it to any of those, the police, fire, or the departments don't want to buy it, how about just selling it to Eastpointe residents only? Let them have first rights. So people that work for the city of Eastpointe, and then those that live in the city have first rights to buying the property.
Now, are you thinking residents who want to move into home ownership or just?
Home ownership.
Okay.
Would your suggestion be for us to renovate the houses first or sell them like as is to the residents?
Sell them as is.
I like the idea that you renovate it to bring it up to Eastpointe standards for housing. Because then you know for sure that the houses are at a certain level, at least for the exterior, so that it protects the structure.
Yeah, I'd agree with the mayor. I like the idea of renovating.
And we have talked about that idea because you brought it up before.
Mm-hmm.
Everything didn't make it into this like first version because there was
Okay.
so many ideas. So.
Okay.
And then,
Because we go through so many show cause hearings where it's missing a roof or it's missing a gutter. And I think that if you can do those, then you know if you put those on, you know that house is gonna be in good shape for 2 or 3 years anyway.
Yeah, I think last year you guys sold it as is, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, 3 of them, I think.
3 of them as is.
So 3 of
It
them as
ended up
is?
being 2. They're sold as is at cost.
And I think one we required renovations on.
So do you want to go through the houses depending on what needs to be fixed on renovating it? Because if one needs something minor, do you want to put minor costs into it when someone can do that themselves? Or
I think we're
just all of them?
I think we're leaning towards renovation, but we're gonna discuss it some more, and then it's gonna be a decision for council to make on how much, where we wanna draw the line.
It just seems to me that we shouldn't be selling a house where there's no hot water heater in it, or the furnace isn't functioning right. I think it's gotta be ready for occupancy.
Yeah, I guess I just went off what was happening last year. You sold it as is, so.
And the problem last year was it was as is at our cost, but it was cash. And so then you have to have an employee that can come up with $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. You're not gonna get a mortgage on one of these homes. So it's only people that have enough, maybe they'd take a loan out of their 401 or something, but it has to be somebody who has ready cash. If it's renovated and then sold, somebody could get the mortgage. They could still buy the home, but it's already been fixed up and it's something they could get a mortgage on. So that was kind of some of the thought process on it.
Okay.
Because
Well, of
right now,
course-
for the banks and trusts, it would not be worth it to, it's not a secure enough thing for them to back, to get money off of.
I guess that's what I was kind of saying. Once we renovate it, it's going to up the price of the house. When a person can afford a home at, $5,000, $6,000, and they, can do the renovations themselves, which can be affordable to them.
But a lot of but we would want to at least get reimbursed for what we paid for the home, and a lot of people don't have that $20,000 that we paid for the home in cash. So that's where the question comes in, because your market is a lot smaller to people who have access to that much cash to purchase one of these homes from us.
So if we renovated everything, even the minor things, right, then we could, you could sell it and someone could walk right in without having to worry about fixing anything and get a mortgage, would probably be the case then,
Well,
right?
they would be able, the employees or the people, the residents that are renting that want to go into a home could apply for a mortgage, and then they'd have a place to live. Otherwise, you're never going to get a mortgage on a house that needs a roof and everything else.
I mean, honestly, I thought I wasn't going to mind doing things on my house, but luckily I bought a house that didn't need anything done, and I was very happy that was the case. Because you think you have a lot of time, so I think, like you said, Sarah, that'll open up more people. If you can get the mortgage and you can just walk in,
Right.
people that wouldn't have enough time to fix it up.
Everybody can get a mortgage. I guess that's the whole thing. And these mortgage companies aren't giving you less than $50,000 to get a mortgage these days. People are losing jobs, don't have good credit. You can't even get a home from Habitat for Humanity if you don't have a certain credit score. I checked that. So that's why I'm saying if it's $6,000 to buy this house, then we put in all this renovation in it, bring it up to $15,000. A lot of people don't have that kind of money. So that's just, for conversation. But then also, are we going to put stipulations on the properties if they do move in? They got to be there for like three years or something like that?
I think we're leaning away from that now because part of the reason to have that stipulation is to make sure that something happens with the house, that they don't just buy it and sits there vacant. But if externally it looks fine, and I guess there was a little bit of discussion, like if you end up firing an employee, do you have to force them out of that house then or something like that? It could get a little messy if we started doing it a lot. But it's something we're discussing, and I think we're gonna have to discuss it some more here.
So, do we have a motion for table? No.
I will move to table until our next regular meeting.
Support.
I'm sorry, our October
Second?
2nd regular meeting.
Okay, moved and supported to table this discussion until the October 2nd meeting. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Our next item is the approval of the agreement for the animal control services. Mr. Cotton, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, this is something that I am aware of through the budget conversations, through Acting Director Kaiser's variety of discussions with Macomb County, and through conversations with leadership team and also city council members. So tonight, I want to say before I forget that the agreement you have before you, we received word late Friday, and I read it Saturday and sent you out a notice late today when I realized you need to know this. December 1 is the Macomb County preferred starting date rather than October 1, recognizing the need to hire the additional staff, train them, and have them ready to operate at full steam. So with that being said, there's an additional cost to this, roughly $49,000 is what we budgeted additionally, and this cost will be $41,000 more. The services will be roughly equal. I say roughly because nothing is 100% the same, but they will, there is a scope of services noted here, and in terms of animal control, they'll respond and investigate the animal complaints. They'll enforce city and county animal-related ordinances. Macomb County will work with the police department regarding abuse and neglect investigations. Macomb County will follow up on license violations reported by Eastpointe dog canvassers, and the animal control officer for Macomb County will patrol the city and proactively address animal-related issues. Please know, however, that they will remove dead animals on the roadways, public properties, in other words, not on private property. That's pretty much has been the case for the last, I think, since May. Private property is the homeowner's responsibility. And also stray animals, the animal control officer in Macomb County will pick up stray animals and will try to locate the proper owners, and that has not been the case for the last 4 months. So that's going back to the way it used to be. And the last thing I want to mention, two last things, are cats and licensing. Cats, they will not trap healthy cats. That's something they discontinued doing in 2013 anywhere. They serve Roseville and St. Clair Shores as well. However, any cats that are come to their knowledge that are feral or stray and no owner will be neutered and released back into the city at the cost of $55. So that's how they deal with cats. So those, licensing. Randy Altimus can explain this in more detail, but basically they will seamlessly become integrated with our licensing procedures through our clerk's office. And there is a different fee schedule that's slightly higher, but it's much more robust in terms of speed and accuracy, probably because of that speed. So if there's more questions you have, Randy can answer them. He's been working on that. If you want to go forward, there will be kind of some kickoff conversations to make sure we're seamlessly lined up for the October 1st start. And we have every reason to believe it will be successful. And
December 1st.
December 1st.
Thank you. I rely on our team here a great deal, as you can tell. So thank you, Randy. So with that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know Lieutenant Detective Childs is here. Acting Director Kaiser is at a away training, but we will collectively attempt to answer your questions.
I have a question. So animal control officers, there's a total of 7. Is that correct?
Currently, yes.
That's
They
countywide.
have, but how, will there be one in Eastpointe on the weekends?
You might have some of the same questions I did.
Yeah, it'll be up to Macomb County to schedule them. I do not know the answer to that question. This spreadsheet that you're looking at is produced by Macomb County, so it's trying to reconcile, show you how they came to the numbers that we've been advised. The first column is they're on October 1 fiscal year, in case you're trying to figure that out. That explains the differences for that first year.
I was actually glad to hear that they could not start right away, because I honestly can't vote for this contract the way it's written. There's a lot of details in Kaiser's memo that are not in there, like if we provide a vehicle, will we not be paying that vehicle cost that's meant to replace a $50,000 vehicle every year? The way it's written now, we would just be paying and giving them a vehicle. The 12.5% for employees, as Mayor Pixley was sort of alluded to, I wanted to know, we're paying for one employee, is how they're kind of painting it. Is that employee just going to be in Eastpointe and using our vehicle? Because if it's just going to be a county-wide animal control, we shouldn't be paying the full cost of an employee providing a vehicle and then subsidizing services for other cities. And it's framed as 12.5%. The new employee brought on will be the cheapest of the 8. So right from the get-go, we're subsidizing officers for the other that are in other parts of the county. And I don't know how many people are aware of this, but Roseville, St. Clair Shores, and Eastpointe are the only 3 cities, if we join on to this, that are paying for these services. Every other city in the county just gets them as is.
Right, because it's included. Animal control is part of your taxes for Macomb County. Your Macomb operating.
So, I mean, I don't like that we really even have to do this, but if the county's moving in this direction because there's not enough funding to do everything they want to do, it's got to be more equitable.
I mean,
than-
shouldn't this be,
Then it should
I guess
be.
I didn't know this detail. Shouldn't it be split across everybody? Is that
Well, that's what we're
be
saying.
real cheap for everybody?
That's what we're saying, is that
I
if
did
you're
not.
already paying for it in your taxes, in your county operating taxes, then the benefit should be equal throughout the whole area.
Can we get a response from them on that?
Well, that's what Steve was doing last year, was he was up there several times and ended up going and talking to Mark
I know one.
Hackle and then Mark Denlin as well, because Mark Denlin is the one that's over this.
I know we have a commissioner who is looking into this at the moment.
Oh,
Wonder who that could be.
but I think she looked into it last year, too.
Yes, but I know last year we were more related to getting that other contract signed.
Well,
that
and then
did in
we went
April
to that
last
because
year.
we got so frustrated trying to get the county.
So are they still going to hire someone regardless if we, because they want until December 1st to do that, but I'm assuming only if we
I
approve
believe
this,
it's
they would
in their-
start to look?
I believe it made it into their budget
Oh, okay.
with this expense,
Assumption.
with this revenue from Eastpointe expected to be in it. So I'm,
Because
I don't know where
their budget starts in October.
yeah, I think they just did the animal control presentation like 2 weeks ago or something, or last week.
I was just curious because it'd be nice if, so then that gives us some time to discuss this and get some answers, and we'd still be on the same schedule. That's
Well,
all, so that's
maybe
nice.
that county commissioner could come and talk to us and tell us what advances she's made with this contract.
I think she'd be happy to. And I do want to use the county. I think they do a great job, so it's not a question of that. It's just, I feel like this is just adding to their whole team that services the entire county and falling the cost on Eastpointe, so.
I just don't understand where those other communities, obviously, other communities like Sterling Heights and Shelby Township probably have the same type in numbers of animal control problems that we have down here. So I just don't understand why we're paying and they're not. All right,
guess-
so can we get a motion to table this for further investigation?
Madam Mayor, I motion to table the approval of the agreement of animal control services from the Macomb County Animal Control.
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
So, Mr. Cotton, I would just suggest that maybe you talk with our county commissioner, and then maybe also Mark Dedlin, or set up a meeting with the two of them.
Will do, thank you.
I do know that Chief Randazzo wants to have a face-to-face meeting with us too. So, I mean, this has kind of caught everybody kind of quickly. And even the indication of, I've only been in the conversation about on the clerk's side of this for a 5-minute conversation. And, you know, with this being pushed back to December, I now have logistical concerns on what or if we have any part of this. So, I'm kind of concerned about that a little bit, because if their time frame on renewals runs like ours, it begins January and goes to March. We're already ran out of time for us to do this. We can't even get the tags in quick enough now if we do this on our own. So we have some logistical concerns on the clerk side. And again, I just got into the conversation on Thursday, so.
So can you also meet with our county commissioner and Mr. Cotton and Mr. Dedlin?
Well, hopefully we can get a whole face-to-face together to talk, you know, between us and the chief and everybody else, and get this kind of, you know, discussed and worked out. Mr. Cotton is right. The indication is they do have state-of-the-art software. It's now time and all this. But again, trying to put something in place now in December, you know, we had a running shot at it between October and December to figure this out. Now I've got 30 days, so I've got some huge concerns on the clerk side.
You know what I would be, because I do think that having them handle that is a good idea because of the technology they have. I don't know if it would be appropriate, but if we wanted to go ahead and transfer just that aspect, you know, with the understanding that if we are going to be paying something, that it will be credited once the actual agreements, because I don't want to hold on to that. That's not something, and if they keep the fees, I don't think that they would push back against.
No, I don't think so. I think, I got the sense when I talked to the chief, that he was amenable to however we wanted to work through it. It's just that I've only had 5 minutes of conversation with him. I haven't, you know, the rest of the logistics of talking through how this all works has not been communicated. And that's a little hard to do when you're on a cell phone, you know, driving someplace and talking to me. So I'm not opposed to allowing them to handle the whole thing if they want to do that, just because of the increased cost of the licenses between what we charge now and what they charge. You know, the headache for us is not really worth it for us for keeping it. But
Well,
I still would like to have access to that software, because we utilize a lot of that information for building code enforcement and also rental.
That's my concern as well, as I think you have to have access to it, because we get so many animals that are lost on weekends for some reason. And if they have a tag, then you can locate where and who, and I would imagine that you share your records with the police department, but,
Yes, they have actually read rights to our software. One of the other technology changes that the chief was talking about, and I'm talking about Chief Randazzo, is that they're going to a chip GPS system in the dog tag itself. So that's also, and it's going to be incorporated into their software. So when he talks about now time software, he's talking about when somebody enters a license, they hit enter, it goes out to everybody that has access to that, whether it's our police department, our ACO, or our clerk's office.
and it would be really nice, because it seems like we find a lot of dogs within a half a mile of 10 Mile Road. And it would be really nice if we also had access to Harper Woods, because a lot of dogs wander over 8 Mile Road, as well as Roseville and St. Clair Shores even. I don't know whether that's possible, but I think it would avoid a lot of the problems where this cute little dog is found and you know that he's been treated really well and nobody can find him, and you find him 5 miles from his house. It's got to be some way that you can find these dogs and get them back to their owners.
I get the sense, and we've done it in the past also, is communicated, you know, whether it's with City of Detroit, if it's one of their tags or another community, and we've called before. I know the police department has, and gave a tag number if they have some way to communicate with somebody, look it up and find out where that goes. So that has taken place in the past.
I got a question. We combine with cities all the time. Why we couldn't partner up with Roseville and we just share one, an animal control officer?
Roseville's with the county.
Yeah, is their contract about to be up?
I don't
was that
know.
ever
Roseville and St. Clair Shores have been with the county for a while.
for a while? Okay.
Yeah, right now, the only ones, you know, you got the bigger cities like Sterling Heights, who has their own ACO force. Matter of fact, I think they've taken several of our part-timers when we had part-time ACOs. They've taken them and hired them on staff, so.
Sterling Heights Animal Control is almost all Eastpointe.
So Roseville and St. Clair Shores are the only cities then paying Macomb County Animal Control? Is that what we were saying then, right? Since they are already
They're the only ones that are paying.
working, right,
For-
the only ones paying,
For
and then,
this kind of stuff, I do think they do pay the other, like, fees, like that contract we did almost a year ago, when we drop off our animals. They still, a lot of cities
have
pay
a
that.
couple fees, just no yearly, like, we work with you sort of fee,
And
like a per animal.
payment for the kennel attendant.
Yeah.
It's not something, I think that would just be us. I think that's new.
Okay. Lots to discuss.
Is that, did they expand their kennel, or are they using the Michigan Humane Society kennel that's up there in Mount Clemens?
I am not sure on that.
Because I'm wondering if that's what that charge is for.
I know that something's changed. I think St. Clair Shores, the last time they entered, they were just paying a fee for the officer, not for the kennel attendant. But I don't really know the details on what that charge is for.
Beware of new contracts. All right, let's move on to payroll and bills.
We have a motion and a table. I do have okay, I have a vote. Sorry.
You did
I had to
get
get
a
this
vote.
bifocals back in.
You did get a vote on the
Yep,
table.
we're set. Thank you. Sorry.
I will make a motion to approve payment of the bills in the amount of $1,872,668.89.
Support.
Move to support it, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
All right, let's move on to our second hearing of the public who wishes to be heard. Mr. Creech.
Madam Mayor, Council Harvey Creech. Yes, I was privileged to go to a Democratic political lunch yesterday, and I tell you, it was a great lunch because they hit everything except for the kitchen sink. And the biggest things, I really said, they talked about roads, they talked about education, they talked about insurance, they talked about water, and they had really a lot of good things to say. But when they got down sort of to the hardware and the hard works of it, when they were talking about education, they were talking about transportation, and they were talking about appropriations. You know, it behooves me right now, as I got a chance to talk to quite a few people, even in the audience. In Chippewa Valley, the lady was there. She's in a complex. There's 156 duplexes in there. She said it's great. There's no kids in there at all. And yet their school system is unbelievable. They got one of the greatest school systems around. Then I was talking to another lady that was talking about she's from Fraser. And I got the biggest kick out of her. She said, man, my water bill is bad. I said, how bad is it? She commenced to tell me, I said, lady, you got a good water bill. I said, there's two of us, and I pay $85 to $90 a month. I thought she was going to fall out of her chair. You know, I mean, I got a chance to say, you go to these places, and you get a chance to talk to a lot of people, and you mention a lot of things, and you really get the grasp of how this world is really operating. And I went to the other meeting. Like I said, that was a great meeting when I went to the new city manager. That was an eye-opener. I mean, there was a lot of good things in that. And I'm glad, the Macomb area, this was a discussion, right, of just the Macomb area itself. Like they were talking about how many votes they won, the votes they've lost. I'm just saying one thing about to everybody in this room. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a liberal. I don't care if you're a Tea Party. But you better start looking out. I'm telling you, you better really, really start looking out, because politics are not getting thick and thin. It's the truth. If we don't pay attention, as I said, with the roads, with the education, with the insurance, and with the water, we got nothing else to look for. And the biggest statement that was made yesterday, but yet the smallest little paragraph, is a gentleman that says, he says, I want to talk about this. He said, I've got 2 kids and they both have Crohn's disease. He said, now what am I going to do? He was talking about exactly pre-existing. He said, look at yourselves, people in this room. He says, is there any one of you that won't have a pre-existing, some kind of a disease or something as you get older? And it's the truth. The insurance itself, everybody better really start paying attention to the insurance, because it's getting to be, right now, everybody needs insurance. And they're talking about getting rid of this, getting rid of this, getting rid of this, and getting rid of this. I tell you, that meeting yesterday was really an eye-opener. And as I say, every time I come in front of this council, too, in front of the residents, please, open your eyes. I'm not going to say we can make a difference, but one thing about it, if you don't vote, there's no difference whatsoever. So please, as I said, this next coming up in election, please get out there and vote. And I say, lynch those people, like I said before, too. If you want to talk to your representatives, I laugh. Last time that, when the mayor says, well, just call your representative, talk to Beta. I just got done talking to him 15 minutes before that. So it doesn't matter who you see, who you talk to, or what you do, but at least put both feet forward. Go out there and do the best you can. And hopefully, as I said, we can get a lot of things straight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creech. Anyone else wishes to be heard? Karen?
Karen Morajan, Eastpointe resident. Yes, please wrap this up with Macomb County Animal Control. We have been without animal control for far too long. I strongly encourage you to get in touch with Chief Randazzo as soon as possible. You could also follow up with Scott Atkins, the city manager for Roseville, and he shared with me at a rare meeting they are extremely pleased with Macomb County Animal Control. Now, had we had them back in August, I wouldn't have had to have bombarded Rich with all kinds of emails about that poor rabbit, which is why the city attorney's office is reviewing animal neglect charges, because had Macomb County had the jurisdiction, they would have filed a citation for animal neglect. I ask a difficult question: how can you reconcile allowing petting farms when it conflicts with the humane pet ordinance? Because the petting farms do have rabbits. On one hand, you're saying, no, you can't sell them in pet shops in Eastpointe, but you can have them in petting farms in Eastpointe. That's not okay. And, there's no regulation at all. I mean, they're carting these animals all over the state of Michigan in hot trailers. There's no air conditioning. It's no less than, an hour drive. And these animals carry and can spread zoonotic diseases to children and to pregnant women. On the news tonight, if anyone saw it, there was a camel that broke loose. It was startled and attacked. 6 people were injured. There were no serious injuries, but this is a huge lesson, a huge wake-up call.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. That, we can't do this to animals. We don't put them on public display. They're not spectacles for public entertainment. They're animals that we need to respect and have compassion for. I don't know if everyone can see this, but I want you to see what happens when you break up a rabbit fight, because the thing is these animals aren't regulated. People can get bit, and no, the city, is not going to be free from litigation. If this is on the public record and you know that animals carry zoonotic diseases, and if they bite, the city also can be named in a
time is
lawsuit.
up.
This is the SCAR.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, the second hearing of the public is closed. We'll move on to mayor and council reports. Let's start with Mr. Kleinfeld.
I just want to say I am excited to get away from the city for a few days and go to MML convention. And I'll see most of you there. And I wanted to say congratulations to Stacy Dempsich, who will be getting married on Friday. And tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, there's an 8K meeting at Crescentwood.
At Pleasant View.
Pleasant View, sorry. And that's a really important meeting. If you're interested in 8K, I urge that you go. I think there's going to be some change in who's handling what there, so if you can make it. And that's it.
Sorry, what is AK stand for?
Oh, 8 Mile Kelly Homeowners Association.
Okay, this is Sita.
The only thing I have this evening is that I'm really excited to announce that we're finally going to have our first Parks Commission meeting, and that is set for September 26th at 7 p.m., and it will be in Conference Room B here at City Hall.
September 26th?
Yes, at 7 p.m.
So that's going to be after our interviews.
Correct. And that'll be it for this evening.
Okay. All right. Ms. Owens.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to give my condolences out to the family that lost their daughter at the Fitzgerald School. I have 2 daughters, so I don't know what they're going through, so many prayers out to them and that family. Also, I'm on the Library Commission, so I have a couple of announcements what's coming up. Well, the board games is Wednesday of this week, tomorrow, and we have story time, and Pizza and Pages is something where, kids get together, they can read, it's a book club, and they can have pizza at the end. And so I love taking my kids there so they can get their homework done. It's free dinner for me, so I don't have to make them dinner. So, and then afterwards, they have book for dessert, so you read books and also get dessert. And October is a really good one because we have a lot of things going on in October. October 27th is the pet parade where people will have pets outside. That'll be a good one, so bring the pets. And they were looking for like a mascot. They had a dog, and I was thinking about Ali coming, but I didn't want to put you on spot like that, so I didn't bring Ali up. So they will be having a pet parade, and the pets will be wearing costumes and things like that, and that'll be really fun for the kids. And also, they'll be having a book sale the first weekend of November. I'm going out of order a little bit, so excuse me. October 25th, they will have Fran the cook there at 12 p.m. She really is awesome. I went last time, and she made different salads for the summer, and she's a master chef, and it was really crowded. Food was really good, so she'll be back October 25th. October 29th is Trivia with Jeopardy with Sandy Baker. I'm trying to get all of council to go to the trivia, and just, outing for all of us to do something, together and have fun with the community. So that's October 29th. And October 8th, you see I'm going out of order, is the first greet up for the Eastpointe Clever Clovers 4-H Club that I've started. So if you know about the 4-H Club, ever been part of a 4-H Club, it would be awesome if you come October 8th. We'll be there from 6 to 7:45. We're getting new members, trying to get kids, you know, getting some more things in the community, probably learning some, you know, a lot of things. I found out at a 4-H Club in Mount Clemens that I believe Eastpointe, School of Mount Clemens, and Clintondale have the lowest test scores in Macomb County. And so if we can do some more mentorship programs to help these kids get up to their level and help them be motivated, I think that will really help not only the kids, but bring more people into Eastpointe when they see the test scores going and the community getting involved. Also, I have to say this or my kids are gonna get me. My twin daughters, they go to St. Peter's. Their first game was last week, their second game was today, and they won both. So congratulations to St. Peter's, and their birthday is this upcoming Monday. They will be 10, so they'll be double digits. So I got double digit kids, so they're getting up there. So happy birthday, Cameron and Caden Owens, and that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. You're on, Mr. DeMonico.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, happy birthday, Cameron and Caden, on Monday. It's a big one, 10. And I'm on for Jeopardy. Yeah, 10. You said October 29th. We'll have to do that as long
Are we
as
gonna
I'm not gonna have a
all go
meeting.
against each other, or are we
That's
gonna be
what
on
I
the
was
same
wondering.
team?
Well, I told them that we should all go against different cities. I think we should go against Roseville and St. Clair Shores one day. I think that would be really fun, and we can have some bragging rights.
I do need a rematch with Roseville because when we tried out the hot shot competition, me and Mr. Duchesne didn't do so hot against Roseville. So maybe this could be a rematch. Maybe Jeopardy be a little easier. And then also you should get together with my wife Alyssa for 4-H. She was in 4-H up in the UP. Okay. Didn't do horses. That's all. I know no horses because everyone always thinks 4-H is only horses.
Right.
So, and if anyone's looking for a way to help clean up the city, St. Clair Shores, once a month during the summer cleans up the I-94 entrances, actually at 9, 10, 11, and 12 miles. Beautification Commission has now partnered up with them. I went to this last one. I was able to make the last one, and it's really nice. It's kind of interesting how much piles up after just 1 month because they do this every month. But if you're looking for it, it's on Facebook. Look for St. Clair Shores Watershed Group, and you can find the dates there. And then also, I'm looking forward to these last few steps of the city manager process. So if you're free, the evenings of the 26th and 27th, come out. That's when we'll be having our last couple meetings, hopefully. Saw some fingers crossed back here.
Famous last words, Cardi.
I just jinxed it. And I also am looking forward to the MML convention, the end of this week, and also the Salute to Excellence, which will be any board and commission members, any other leaders in the community, come on out, check that out through the chamber, the Salute to Excellence. We, award Police Officer of the Year, Firefighter of the Year, Resident of the Year, Business of the Year, those sorts of things. Get a ticket through the chamber, come on out, and that'll be right after we have our second interviews with the city manager candidates, so you can have a whole fun evening in Eastpointe that night. And also that is... it's the weird coincidence of my parents and my wife's parents' anniversaries are both September 27th, so that's also that same day. So that's a happy anniversary to all four of them then. And that's all I had, Madam Mayor. Thanks.
All right, thank you. The Salute to Excellence is always a good event, and I love it because I think it really highlights some of our local people and all the extraordinary things they do. I think you may end up being surprised. A couple of the awardees this time are really well-deserving of their awards. And I'm so glad that Deputy Chief Folkerts is getting an award. He's been with the fire department for a long time and has really excelled in his job, and it's always nice to see both the police and fire. I just wish that we could still give awards to other people that are employees that do an outstanding job every single day. Unfortunately, by the time you add the educators and everybody else that the chamber does in both cities, it becomes a little bit of a problem, but. November 1st is the Christmas auction, so you know you cannot get your ticket outside of the event. I mean, at the event, you have to get your ticket before. So that's already filling up. Somebody walked in and said they wanted to buy 3 tables or something, so they're really surprised at how long it's going to be. I've been going to the library, to the book clubs, and also taking all my cans and bottles because they're doing a collection so they can get this computerized table that's kind of like a game table that 4 people can play, and is to teach kids and whole families about special education with, what's the word, STEM and STEAM. So it's STEM and then they add the art. So it's really pretty exciting what they're planning to do. So if you need some more books, just let me know, I'll give you 1,000. But anyway, the book sale is always really good. And I think a lot of my books that I have actually came from there. The Parks Commission, I'm so excited that you're going to get it moving because I really think that we need to get moving on a lot of things with that. So, and some great ideas. When you go to Grand Rapids, be sure and go to Meyer Gardens if you haven't been there. I think from an art perspective, just to see if you've been there before with the sculpture garden and the children's garden and all, it's just such an exceptional place. So I'm very excited about that, and I am so glad that everybody on council is going up to Grand Rapids for the convention. This will be the first time that we were all registered to go. However, about 3 weeks ago now, I got an invitation from, I hate to say this when Mr. Creech is out there, but I got an invitation from the White House to go to Washington, and I was a little bit befuddled. I thought it was a sham that somebody had sent me one of these scam messages, and I thought, you know what, Cardi is right, because I should have changed my address so I know if it was legal or not.
It was from wh.gov? Is that?
No, so I brought it in and I showed it to Randy Altimus, and of course, we checked out the people, and it's from the Intergovernmental Affairs of the U.S. government. So with that, I'm leaving tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock to go to Washington, D.C., and the National League of Cities is having a special reception after that, tomorrow night, to talk about legislative issues and what we want to push on. But the White House actually suggested that we bring local information related to infrastructure. I'm sorry Mr. Creech isn't here because what he just said is exactly what they asked for. About infrastructure, about students, and about schools, about water supply, about roads, highways, and insurance, and medical care, and housing. So if Mr. Creech was here, he couldn't have designed it any better. And it's going to be real interesting. It's a tour of the White House, followed by 5 hours of working with the legislative people, legislative affairs for the White House. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen. And, you know, I'm a very independent person. I don't want to say I'm on either party. So I was shocked to see an invitation come from the White House. But they said they had invited 400 women mayors from across the country, and as far as I can tell, I'm the only one from Michigan. So I'm wondering, what makes Eastpointe so attractive that you would invite a mayor from Eastpointe to the White House? So I was talking with a reporter from the East Sider, and he said, that's what I'd like to find out. What the heck makes Eastpointe so attractive? So we'll find out. I'll come back and tell you all about it. But I found out today that I could have invited a guest to go along. And you know who I would have invited? Mr. Creech. So anyway, I'll entertain a motion. I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session, please.
All right, Madam Mayor, I'll motion to go into closed session to consider purchase or lease of real property and for confidential employment applications.
Support.
Move to support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
We're going to go into closed session at